Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Senator Wakili Cherargei. Mr. Speaker, I want to second by saying it has reached a point that we now need to clean up our own standing orders, Mr. Speaker, because what guides this House, Mr. Speaker, is normally our standing orders, which in essence has originated from the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy. I want to make 3 comments to allow my colleagues, and I can see Senator Ofiga is seeing me with excitement, Mr. Speaker, is that I want to say 2 things. One is on the issue of amending on supplementary questions. Mr. Speaker, when we amended under the new standing order on appearance of cabinet secretaries for question and answer time, Mr. Speaker, members have felt that asking only 1 supplementary question with the root of the issue that came up, Mr. Speaker, has always been a challenge. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I agree that let members ask questions, in fact, from the entire ministry. And I'm happy, for example, I can use 1 minister that came here, Governor, Cabinet Secretary Salim Vuria. We were able to ask him a written of questions, and he was able to answer comfortably without saying that question was not part of the supplementary, part of the original question. He was comfortable, Mr. Speaker. My belief, and the belief of members, Mr. Speaker, is that if you are in charge of a docket, you must have at least an overview of your docket where you are. And the retired judge, minority leader, will tell you in law school, and yourself, you know, you think on your feet. The essence of engaging, Mr. Speaker. So I want to agree that let members be allowed to ask supplementary questions. That's the essence. Even when you look at Commonwealth parliamentary system, even in Britain and many others that practice question time for prime ministers or cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, is very important. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of removing statements, Mr. Speaker, I would have also requested, but I want to agree that I think your office, so that we don't appear brutal, is not to drop statements, but at least in consultation with the ministers, Mr. Speaker, not ministers, senators are out, Mr. Speaker. It is important that they liaise with your office. For example, Mr. Speaker, if the senator is not in the House, Mr. Speaker, is it possible to liaise with your office so that their statements, if you have given them official permission, maybe they are traveling outside the country or county visits through parliamentary visits, Mr. Speaker, is it possible to get permission from you? Then you don't have to schedule such statements. But any senator whose statements have been scheduled and they have not given you indication, then I agree with the amendment that they must seek leave. Mr. Speaker, I think in future when we amend these standing orders, in my wisdom or lack of it, Mr. Speaker, we should at least include bills and motions, Mr. Speaker, because there are bills that have stayed. And I remember there is 1 member, Mr. Speaker, the other day when I was moving my bill, argued that, 1 senator argued that, why are we prioritizing National Assembly bills? But when you look at the order paper, Mr. Speaker, the members who are supposed to move their bills and motions were not in the House. It happened coincidentally that the bill that was being moved originated from National Assembly. So I don't know, Mr. Speaker, I hope you are the chair of a committee of these procedures. Please kindly note with a lot of indulgence. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, I have seen also a proposal, and I wish Senator Metu would be listening to this very keenly. Mr. Speaker, I think Senator Metu is listening because he's the chairperson of Environment and Natural Resources, where they are proposed that if you are a chairperson, you should not sit in CPAC and sipping, Mr. Speaker. I don't know, maybe in the wisdom, in the wisdom, Mr. Speaker, he's saying he's ready to forgo chairmanship to be able to still sit in the cabinet. But I can see he's consulting majority leader. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the essence is allowed to make sure, Mr. Speaker, there is efficiency and effectiveness of a committee. It is not that chairmen of various committees do not have capacity to sit in those committees, but it is because the nature of CPIC and CPAC, Mr. Speaker, is that we sit daily from Monday to Friday. And Mr. Speaker, you are aware we have backlogs of audit queries of many years. Even we are not updated in 2023, 2024, Mr. Speaker. So on this one, I know majority and minority leaders have consulted on this extensively. Mr. Speaker, number 3, Mr. Speaker, on my contribution is the use of subcommittees. I want to inform this House, and Senator Otsosi will be in agreement with me, and also Senate's County Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker, we have agreed that to ensure we come with the latest and clear backlog of audit queries in counties, Mr. Speaker, as we go for this working recess, we shall form the subcommittees, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on dormant committees, so that I allow colleagues also to make because this is a procedural matter, is on the inactive members of the committees and dormant members, Mr. Speaker. I think majority and minority need to guide us, Mr. Speaker, on how we can handle this issue. And I agree, Mr. Speaker, in the ruling in the last session on David David Ochieng, the MP of Ugenya, at that time the national NASA, was it called NASA? I think NASA coalition wanted to de-whip him. And his argument in the ruling of Justin Biden Muturi, the current AG, ruled that in an upshot of his ruling, Mr. Speaker, when David Ochieng was being de-whipped, and I know Senator Otsosi was in that session, the speaker then, Justin Bundi Muturi, ruled that at least every member of parliament, either a senator or member of National Assembly, must be at least in one committee. So with this insight, I think also we should propose, and I know Senator Metu will support this, we should propose that if you are a member of PIC or PAC, you should only be in one committee. You should not be any other committee, so that you are able to channel your energies where it should be, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the upshot, and I think finally on implementation, I agree that let committees follow up on the resolutions. There is always a matrix on how they can implement, Mr. Speaker. I know we have argued, even in the last session, Mr. Speaker, even at the beginning of this session, we have always, let's have an implementation committee to follow on recommendation. But when we ask and we have been consulting, we thought if it is PIC, Senate CIPIC, who should, or CIPAC, or Agriculture Committee to follow up on resolutions, Mr. Speaker, then I think we need to agree on how the implementation committee, Mr. Speaker. And I agree that on this implementation committee, we must agree as a House and allow these resolutions, Mr. Speaker, to be done by individual committees. The reporting mechanism, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, because I know you chair this committee, is to look at the reporting mechanisms. Because, for example, if today we say Kakamega County, Mr. Speaker, we say Kakamega County, for example, PAC, Senate Public Accounts Committee, where his governor appeared last week, recommends that EACC follows up on a matter. So how do we ensure, Mr. Speaker, that EACC has implemented the directions of the committee? So I think those are issues I want to throw to members to agree with, Mr. Speaker, because how do we ensure reporting mechanism? How can committee know, Mr. Speaker, that in our recommendations or directions, has it been adhered to? So we need to ensure that there is reporting mechanism, Mr. Speaker, and I want, Mr. Speaker, on liaison, I agree that there should be a vice chair so that it is easy, especially you and Deputy Speaker, to allow you to efficiently, among the chairpersons of the liaison, they sit, Mr. Speaker, but in future also we should consider as the vice chairpersons also to have our own liaison committee, Mr. Speaker, and I'll propose to be the chair of the vice chairpersons of the committees, Mr. Speaker. But the upshot of this cleanup or recommendations is very beautiful, Mr. Speaker. We need to agree and move forward. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me, and I beg to second this report or the motion that has been tabled by the committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzo. Honorable Senators, I will now proceed to propose the question, which is that pursuant to Standing Orders 267, 268, 270, the Senate approved the second report of the Procedure and Rules Committee on the review of the standing orders of the Senate laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 22nd May 2024, and that pursuant to the provisions of Article 124(1) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 270 and 272, resolves to amend its standing orders as contained in Annex 1 of the report, and 2, orders that the amendments to the standing orders as contained in Annex 1 to the report come into effect on the 25th of June 2024. Honorable Manzo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under Article 124 of the Constitution, the House or each House of Parliament